I'm about to become a dad, and with that, I really hope this one thing dies with me. Let's talk about it. So if you're new here, let me give some context. I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. And this eye condition is genetically passed down. I inherited my eye condition from my mom, and my sister also inherited it from my mom. My brother did not inherit it from my mom because guess what? We each had a 50-50 shot of inheriting it. And me and my sister both won the luck of the draw and inherited this eye condition. And this eye condition causes legal blindness in most cases by the age of 40. And it causes a bunch of issues with your sight. In most cases, you still have some vision, but it causes enough problems with your vision to where you have to give up driving and you're considered blind to the government. You're considered legally blind. So at the end of the day, it's a very serious eye condition to have and live with. And since I'm about to become a parent, I now am faced with a new perspective on my vision loss. You know, I was told by a genetic counselor that my children will have a 50-50 chance themselves of inheriting my eye condition. And for the longest time, that didn't really mean much because for the longest time, I wasn't trying to have kids. And that seemed like it was so far off in the distance. But now it's a reality. My wife's pregnant. We are going to have a boy, and he could be here any week now, to be honest with you. And during this pregnancy, I've done some genetic testing to see if they could pinpoint the type of RP I have. That way they could do a blood test on our son when he's born to see if he has it instead of having to wait until he's of age to basically diagnose it. And what was concluded was they couldn't basically pinpoint the type of RP I have. So to make this simple, like since they can't pinpoint the type of RP that I have, they can't figure out if my son will have it because they won't know what to look for. So in other words, we won't know until we know. We won't know until he either shows symptoms or doesn't show symptoms. We won't know until we do certain tests and figure it out. So long story short, it's out of my hands and only time will tell whether or not my son will inherit my eye condition. And all this leads me to my point because this video is not about genetic testing. You know, it's not about the likelihood of whether or not I'm going to pass down my eye condition to my son. You know, this video is about, you know, how my whole entire viewpoint of retinitis pigmentosa has shifted. My whole entire, you know, ideology has changed. You know, I've been making videos for this channel, See Through. I've done over 125 podcast episodes where I've talked, you know, with other people about their eye conditions, and I've learned a lot. And nothing has taught me more about my eye condition than knowing that I'm going to be a dad. It's really made things kind of black and white for me. My worries went from being about myself to now being about, you know, my future son. And, you know, if he has my eye condition, how will he handle it? With that, I will say, you know, I'm glad I was born despite having my eye condition. Obviously, I have a great life. I'm doing well for myself. And if my son has retinitis pigmentosa, he'll be just fine. He'll be just fine. He'll be all right. But let's be real. You know, having an eye condition, having a retinal disease that causes blindness is a disadvantage. It's not really something that gives you a head start in life. Let's just put it that way. In fact, it can be a major roadblock because, you know, if he does have RP, he may not experience symptoms until his 20s. And then he's building all this momentum in his career, in his personal life. And then he has to kind of adjust everything to accommodate, you know, his vision loss, if it's a thing. And I had to experience that myself. So, you know, I've kind of been there, done that type of thing. So as his dad, I will be able to guide him and walk him through it. And I take comfort in that. So basically, my anxiety has shifted from myself onto him. It's really put it into perspective for me when it comes to cures. Because for the longest time, I was like, yeah, a cure would be obviously 10 out of 10 amazing. But I think for my own sanity, I just kind of didn't think too much about cures. I kind of have told myself it's not going to happen in my lifetime. And there are really great things happening in that space that are very exciting and look very promising. And with that said, it's like now my focus on the cure isn't for myself. I don't necessarily feel like I need to be cured. I just want that to be an option for my son if he gets my eye condition. I want that to be a reality for him. I don't want him to have to limit his life in any capacity. I want limitless opportunities for my son. If he wants to be a NASCAR driver, I want that to be a possibility. If he wants to be a pilot, I want that to be a possibility. Anything that like a lack of vision may affect in terms of his career potential or his potential at all, I don't want anything getting in his way. I want basically him to have a wide open playing field when it comes to life. I want him to have every benefit that's possible. And let's be real, an eye condition is a huge disadvantage. Another new thought that has popped up, due to my RP plus becoming, a future dad here any week now, is I'm starting to get bummed out at the idea of not being able to do certain things with my son. Like, for example, I live in New York City and I like tennis. And, I had this kind of daydream the other day where I was like, oh, I could take my son to the US Open. I've been a couple of times. It's super cool. The stadium's amazing. And wouldn't that be a nice, father-son type of experience? And then it kind of clicked with me. It was like, I don't know. Those steps are real steep. I might not be able to go by myself. I'll have to have my wife go with me, which is fine. I can still make it work. I'll just need some extra help. Or I'll have to wait until my son is of age to guide me. So the reality kind of sunk in that I'm not going to be able to do things one-on-one with my son for everything that I want to do. Like, I'm not going to be able to just hop in a car and take my son somewhere because I feel like it. I'm limited. And that's a bummer because, I want to be the best possible dad I can be. I want to provide my son with experiences. I don't want to just be cooped up in an apartment. I don't want my son's childhood to be, basically mostly indoors because of limitations to when and where I can go based on my vision. And that's something that I have to figure out. That's something I have to actively challenge myself and think about and, find a solution. I have this problem. How can I find a solution? And that kind of ties into why I made this video, because I just want to share my headspace, because my son will be born any week now. And I wanted you to know, where my headspace is when it comes to retinitis pigmentosa and becoming a dad. I'm going to try my absolute best and not let it impact me. There are going to be some cases where it does impact me. I'm going to have to be adaptable. I'm going to have to think outside the box, and I'm up for this challenge. I just have to face the facts. I got to face the realities. My son may have this condition. He may not. And my eye condition is going to impact the way I parent and the things I can do with my son. Those are realities. And when it comes to wanting a cure for my eye condition, I really want that to be a possibility for my son. So that's why I support, organizations like Foundation Fighting Blindness. They're raising millions of dollars towards, research and development, for these inherited retinal eye diseases, hyper specific to my specific eye condition, retinitis pigmentosa. And there's not many organizations doing that, because, RP is a rare disease. And it's nice to have, an organization fighting so hard to raise money to basically find a cure for my eye condition. And not only my condition anymore, but, my potential son's eye condition, or, my niece's eye condition, my sister's eye condition, my eye condition, my mom's eye condition, it goes on. And on that note, when it comes to family, there's a chance that my son will not have retinitis pigmentosa. Again, it's 50-50. And if he doesn't have it, guess what? It's done for. RP ends with me. RP could end with me. Isn't that exciting? I think a lot of times we forget how fleeting these eye conditions are. Like, they can go on and go on and go on, given the right circumstances. But, with them being an inherited condition, you really have to pass it on or you don't pass it on. I may have more children. I may not. I may only have one kid. We'll see how life goes. But, I really would love for retinitis pigmentosa to end with me. I would love for my son to not even have to worry about a cure. And again, I just want him to have the least disadvantages possible. So with that said, as much as I like to empower people with visual impairments, and how much I want to empower people to live life to the fullest despite their eye condition or living with retinitis pigmentosa, I also just want to say, you know what? I hope RP dies with me. And that's just me being honest. It's not me being ashamed of my RP or anything like that. It's just me being honest and saying, you know what? As much as we want to talk about, being proud of our eye condition or disability, at the end of the day, it's not really something we want to pass on. So that's why we need to support organizations like Foundation Fighting Blindness, or any other, nonprofit organization that is doing similar work. You may feel like, oh, I'll be okay. I don't need a cure. And that may be the case. But what about the future generations? So that's my thoughts on all this. I just wanted to share why I want my RP to die with me. And let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm curious to know everyone's thoughts on this. Like, do you share similar thoughts? Are any of you parents? Like, how do you handle being a parent with RP? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you like this video and got value out of this video, please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, to my channel. I'm going to be sharing a lot of personal insights and thoughts along the way and documenting my vision loss journey. And with that said, thanks for spending some time with me and take care.